Overseer. Jake Mondello versus Ben Friedman at 6-0. And sleeves today. Ben definitely mixing it up. We start out with Jake Mondello. On the play with Affinity, he starts out with 4 artifacts and the ever so important turn 1 Steel Overseer. This can be very scary.
Yeah, the Darksteel Citadel enabling the Mox Opal. That turn 1 Overseer is well above average.
Ben will respond with a turn 1 Noble Hierarch, and the sparks fly immediately here in this modern matchup. And Jake's going to start going to work with his Steel Overseer. He plays Signal Pest, Vault Scourge. Inkmoth Nexus turns itself into a 1-1. Steel Overseer taps to put 5 1-1 counters on Jake's permanents. And he is going to start the attacks with that Ornithopter.
And when it comes to being vulnerable to something like Lightning Bolt or Path to Exile, Steel Overseer is the most vulnerable kind of 2-mana spell you can cast on turn 1. However, when there's no removal spell, as you can see, it runs away with the game very quickly.
Now, Ben did fortunately draw Path to Exile that turn, so he may have some game here. One of the ways to attack Bant is going wide, and Jake's doing just that.
Yeah, even with the Path on the Overseer, it's already generated 3 additional power on the creatures just on the battlefield, and that counter on the Inkmoth Nexus as well. So the Overseer has done a lot of work, even if it gets Path right now.
Well, this is interesting. So we see an Ancient Strings from Ben. It reveals an Engineered Explosives. And there may yet be life on the Bant Eldrazi side. There's a lot of cards with similar mana costs on Jake's side of the board. There's a Path in Ben's hand. Maybe he can answer all these things.
You really want to Path the Overseer right away, though Ben's likely thinking about just casting explosives on 2 here. Using that, you'd clean up the Scourge and the Overseer, then you're left with a 2-power Signal Pest and a 2-power Ornithopter. Maybe that's manageable with a Path plus something else. If you can get an Eldrazi Displacer online, you can blink away the Ornithopter.
So his options here, he can either Path the Overseer before letting Jake untap, or he can set an Explosives to 2, really clear out, take a big hit, and then clear out the board the next turn.
Yep.
We'll see which way he wants to go with it. And it might be that 2 to cast Explosives and then 2 to sacrifice at the next turn is just more, like, Ben may not have time for that.
The Explosives loses a ton of value if he paths here, just has a card in his hand. Currently, there's a 2 mana creatures, but everything else has varied mana cost. We have a 0 mana Ornithopter, a 2 mana Vault Scourge, and a 1 mana Signal Pest. So you are losing a lot of value by cracking it on any other number than 2. Also, Jake just knows about the Explosives because of the Ancient Stirring, so he's not going to commit something like a Cranial Plating onto this board.
Yeah, so if he puts the Engineering Explosives on 0, he'd hit the Mox Opal and the Ornithopter. That's not bad. On 2 mana, he gets the Steel Overseer and the Vault Scourge, and on 1, he gets the Signal Pest.
So 1 is pretty much right out for numbers that you would go for.
Ben will cast Eldrazi Temple. That can accelerate him. Certainly won't help him cast Engineered Explosives on 2. And you see, Engineered Explosives reads non-land permanent with converted mana cost. So there's no way for Ben to get that Inkmoth Nexus.
Right.
And Ben has chosen Noble Hierarch will cast Path to Exile on the Steel Overseer. So Jake will not get to untap. So that's the last of the 1 counters for now. He does get a basic land out of his deck. He actually plays 2 this weekend. It's a 1 mountain and 1 island. Generally, there's actually the splash color for Affinity. Can be a lot of different things. Mountain generally means Galvanic Blast.
Yep. Then island means Thoughtcast or Master of Ethereum. Often both.
The island actually in Jake's hand. So he activates the Inkmoth Nexus, swings, Battle Cry happens. So there's going to be some damage. It'll be 2 damage off the Ornithopter, 3 off the Vault Scourge, 1 off the Signal Pest for 6, and we'll put 3 poison on as well. And Springleaf Drum from Mondello.
And Jake is out of gas here. His hand, he just has that island hanging out. That's his last card. So he's just kind of got to make do with what he has on the battlefield. Now, this is a really good start, given that he got that 1 activation out of the Steel Overseer. That produced a lot of pressure here, as Friedman lost a third of his life total on that turn. Of course, a 2-turn clock, and then the Inkmoth Nexus hanging out, even if Ben's able to clear up the board a little bit here. So there's a lot of pressure for Ben to clear these up, and notably, everything on Mondello's side of the battlefield just has flying. The Ornithopter, the Signal Pest, Vault Scourge, and that Inkmoth, they all fly, so something like a Thought-Knot Seer doesn't really impact anything. if he had like Eldrazi Sky Spawner, that would be reasonable here. There are 4 copies in his deck.
Can Ben counter race? You know, something like Reality Smasher here into another Smasher.
I think he's just a turn behind. He has to have Smasher plus Smasher removal spell.
Yeah, it looks like he takes a more defensive situation. So with that Eldrazi Temple making 2 mana, he'll cast Eldrazi Displacer. That one actually could be pretty good at playing defense if he stabilizes.
Yeah, Displacer is really great. It'll help him get that point of power off the Ornithopter. If he can get a removal spell for the Signal Pest, he can really pump the brakes here.
Now he has some options. He, with his remaining 2 mana, can cast Engineer Explosives or a Talisman. He's going to cast Engineer Explosives for 0 and sacrifice it. So down goes the Mox Opal, and down goes Ornithopter. Ben's remaining hand. Oh, wow. Hold on. Jake's going to play Cranial Plating. Maybe this doesn't matter.
It's a phenomenal top deck here.
Ugh, scary indeed. Now Jake has to decide between regular damage and poison.
Yep, Ben is on 3 poison, 12 regular damage in.
It's probably regular damage.
In the face of Eldrazi Displacer, it's going to be really hard to connect with Inkmoth Nexus too many times.
I guess you have to wonder, is Ben dead? Hold on. Yeah. So he's going to go, yeah, and I think he is. He's going to equip Cranial Plating to Inkmoth Nexus and swing with Pest and Inkmoth. So Inkmoth's a 2/2. We'll pump it up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Battle Cry 10. Yeah, that's just the full poison combo. And game 1 goes to Jake Mondello.
A little eye roll from Friedman there.
How about that Cranial Plating card? Gee.
It's pretty powerful. Still pretty good.
So game 1 goes over to the robots. We will look at some sideboards then. Ben Friedman, Bant Eldrazi. He's got 2 Worships, 2 Natural States, 4 copies of Rest in Peace, 2 Grafdigger's Cage. I wonder if he had Dredge on the mind a bit when building this sideboard.
Yeah, you have to imagine.
2 Stubborn Denial, Disdainful Stroke, and 2 copies of Blessed Alliance.
Biggest pickup here is the 2 Natural State to deal with any of those permanents, say, Cranial Plating. Worship, I think, is a little bit slow for dealing with Affinity. I probably wouldn't be touching that. Maybe on the play, definitely not on the draw. Stubborn Denial is fine. You can slow down Cranial Plating. Not in love with it. Blessed Alliance is a little bit slow against Affinity specifically for a beatdown deck, though it is a reasonable option.
Worship, and you said we're liking it?
I think it's a little slow.
You don't think you can cast it in time?
No, I don't really think so.
Whew, that's a statement. I mean, if he lands, if he lands when it's fine, right? He has Noble Hierarchs.
I think that the games where he's able to worship on time are the games that he's winning without worship.
Maybe. All right, I see your point.
Yeah.
We're going to look at Jake Mondello's side. He's got 3 Spell Pierce, a Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Dismember, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Ravenous Trap, 2 Etched Champion, and 3 Girapur Aether Grids.
So the Dismembers are slam dunks. They just kill basically anything that Friedman's up to. I like those a good amount. Sometimes you'll see Girapur Aether Grid coming in when you expect Stony Silence. We know that Friedman does not have them. It's not clear if Mondello knows that or not. So you might see those come in. They're not going to be particularly good. That much we know. Etched Champion is pretty bad against colorless creatures, so that one likely going to be hanging out on the sideboard.
Okay, so it is game night somewhere, and we have that over at StarCityGames.com. We are just starting the new set of pins and tokens. So for the month of December, we will be giving away the Fintuition pin and token. That's just for playing in the week events you'd normally play at during the week. So these are given away for prizes for weekday tournaments all around the country. Now, next month, love this one, we're going to be giving away the Squeaky Cheeky Acorn Breaker pin and token. Your favorite goblin, or maybe is it squirrel? Kind of hard to say. Could be both.
It says it's a goblin. I don't know, some kind of squirrel goblin hybrid.
Oh, chipmunk. I suppose it's supposed to technically be a chipmunk, not a squirrel.
I believe you. I'm not
All right.
a tech. I'm not an expert in the field.
So we get to debut our newest one, and this is for February. If you get signed up right now, you can get the Corgi Firewalker. This is your 1/1 soldier. It's got pro red. It's great in the burn matchup.
It's not a bad one. I would not want to burn that Corgi.
Turn 1 from Ben on the play is going to be a copy of Noble Hierarch. Cast that off Brushland. Down a game is Ben Friedman. Both players with 6 wins already a lock for day 2, but of course looking to have a much stronger weekend than that. We go to Jake, Inkmoth Nexus, Memnite, Vault Scourge. Is that it? Mocks Opal, but then yes, he says go.
So he played the Opal here, though if he had a Galvanic Blast, that would definitely be pointed at Noble Hierarch straight away.
Once again on Ben's side, it looks like we have a lot more controlling of a strategy. You see he plays Eldrazi Temple. He's got Path to Exile, Engineered Explosives, and a Talisman, so he's still on the kill most of the things lines.
Yep.
So Talisman from Ben, Engineered Explosives on 0 and sacrifices it, and this is a big punishment here.
Yeah, for Jake playing that Mox Opal and not generating any mana, he just lost it for no reason. Now it's possible that Jake was trying to bait the explosives on 0. It's kind of been stock for 3 copies of explosives to be there, so maybe he has a hand that's heavy on 2s that he wants to have on the battlefield at the same time.
If you had another Opal, that would make sense.
That's also another reason.
He will play Arcbound Ravager and connect for 1 with the Vault Scourge. We go back to Ben Friedman. And Ben has just been ramping away. Last turn he played both a Talisman and a Temple. So he Ancient Stirs here, and he actually set up with his lock piece. His last 2 cards in hand are Eldrazi Displacer and Drowner of Hope.
Yeah, it's a combo deck.
I mean, those 2 cards together, it's unlikely that Jake will be able to beat them.
Yeah, he'll need to be able to blast away the Displacer, and then he's still under pressure.
And Ben stirs into an Eldrazi Temple and just plays Drowner on turn 3. All right, then. That's 2 mana. That's quite the clip. 2, 4, 6.
That's a reasonable mana curve.
Cranial Plating onto Vault Scourge for Mondello, but that's not going to get to attack. It's tapped with the Drowner. Back to Ben. And this is going to be pretty short. I think when Ben shows the Displacer here, Jake may be out of options.
Yeah, Jake already demonstrated on an earlier turn that there's no Galvanic Blast in hand. Won't take too long for Friedman to kind of snowball out of control with this Displacer Drowner interaction.
Powerful starts from both players. The turn 1 Steel Overseer, game 1 for Mondello for Ben. A 2/4/6 just off his lands, right?
Eldrazi Temple was once a piece of conversation for a card to ban in Modern, and you're kind of seeing the full power of the card here.
Yeah, it turned out that Eye of Ugin got the axe. One of the 2 had to go.
Yeah, at least one.
Yeah, Bant Eldrazi is actually in a really nice place for Modern. It's good, it's top tier, it's not really oppressive.
Yeah, you have some games like this, though this is not the average game. This game would look different had the Hierarch died.
Sure.
Not tremendously different the way this shook out. Jake's not really up to a lot.
So what do we see from Ben? It's going to be... We'll just have to find out. He's got to make sure... It's not just a complete lock, right? Just got to be careful here. Affinity is a very tricky opponent. So it looks like Engineered Explosives on 2 and sacrificed for Ben. So that gets rid of just about everything on Mondello's side. The Scourge, the Plating, and the Ravager. Then Ben plays a Displacer. And this Displacer Drowner on an empty board with 6 mana. I don't know. Jake's going to play his last 2 cards. It's another Ravager and another Plating.
There's a lot of boards where this is a pretty threatening way for Mondello to recover, though with Friedman already controlling Displacer Drowner. Pretty academic to close the game from here.
Right, so Ben can either use the Displacer to blink the Drowner every turn and get net 4 Scions, or he can just simply remove Jake's attackers.
Yep.
Here's a swing for 8 from Ben. Jake will take. Goes down to 6. And on to game 3. A quick one there in the favor of the Bant Eldrazi.
And the other thing about that no Galvanic Blast element to that game was Jake was also off of red mana the entire game after his Opal succumbed to the Engineered Explosives.
And Jake's draw was actually pretty good there.
Yeah, it was a powerful draw. This is actually, we saw Engineered Explosives be more than good enough there. In the games where you can actually relevantly activate it for 0, it's very powerful. It was 2 mana for a 2-for-1 there. Killed a mana source and a creature that could have been relevant. Mondello had a lot left in the tank, but it was all 2 mana. And when he was casting his spells that cost 2 mana, which is the top of the curve for Affinity, and Friedman just has all its lands that tap for 2 mana on their own, was just casting bigger spells. It's really easy to understand how Friedman just pulled further and further ahead as the game progressed there.
All right, so we're going to go back. Didn't see too much sideboarding there, really, from either player. Not many chances to see too much either. They're going to get ready for Game 3. We're going to take a second to tell you about the newsletter we have over at StarCityGames.com. So this will get you the latest on all the SCG Tour events. You get a link to the Match of the Week. You get an exclusive cardboard crack comic, which is pretty popular. You also get some strategic advice from some of SCG's best writers, or commentators, as it were, I believe.
Yeah, I was writing the newsletter for November. The piece for this week was written by yours truly. I wrote about the 10 best modern decks for this format. The match we're watching was 2 of the decks.
How many of them are Grixis?
Well, that's
1 or 2.
something you
is
should
it Grixis Control and Delver?
Subscribe to the newsletter and
Grixis
you would know.
Goryo, Grixis.
The top 10 best Grixis decks in Modern.
All right.
Affinity might make that list. There's some cranial plate activations.
For Ben Friedman at 6-0, now he's taken a game. From Baltimore, Maryland, just 23 years old. You sometimes forget that with how long he's been winning tournaments. He's got 9 open top 8s, including a win. And for someone who we don't see on the tour very much, his 4 invitational top 8s is unheard of.
Yeah. Very impressive resume when it comes to invitationals.
Looking to add a 5th one to the resume this weekend. Jake will start on the play for the 3rd and final game. He starts on Inkmoth Nexus, but no plays at all as we go back to Ben. You should expect something big coming up.
Definitely some kind of 2-mana Haymaker, Arcbound Ravager, Steel Overseer.
All right, turn 2, just Steel Overseer, and he passes. Ben will take a ton of damage here and dismember away. So that's 5 damage. He goes to 15, but no Steel Overseer.
Back in Extended, I used to crack a fetch land for an untapped duel of Thoughtseize a lot. It was a different time in my life. If you're not willing to pay 5 mana to interact on turn 1, you didn't want it bad enough.
Would you fetch for a shock for a dismember on turn 1?
Oh, certainly against Infect, right?
What if you had Probe? Anyway, Jake plays Master of it. So Ben, turn 2, plays an Eldrazi Displacer. Jake's response, Master of Ethereum. We go back to Ben for the 3rd turn.
It's currently a 2/2 Master of Ethereum, not the largest, of course. Friedman's deck, no red mana, no real way to punish it based on size. Though he does get to out-combat it with Eldrazi Displacer.
Yeah, it's just I don't know why they call him a master. He's just a 2/2, and Eldrazi don't care about that.
Gray Ogre of Ethereum here making an appearance.
Well, he may be sent to exile nonetheless. Ben has one at the ready in his hand.
Among the best targets for the card in this matchup.
Breeding Pool tapped. Eldrazi Temple, he taps for a Talisman, paths the Master of Ethereum. And so the reason to path it now, because it gives Jake an extra land, would be to hit with the Displacer, I suppose. He could do this on upkeep, and I'm a little curious why not.
Yeah, his creature was already larger in combat. If you let Jake draw a card, you're technically playing around something like a counterspell from Jake. Maybe you think that he's going to do something that'll disrupt that somehow.
Back over to Jake. And Jake's hand has been pretty high on mana costs. You know, not that low to the ground opening you expect. So it'll be Cranial Plating from Mondello, Arcbound Ravager. I like this. Memnite. Equip Plating to Memnite. And a pass. 1 card left in Jake's hand. It is the basic mountain in his deck. He's got 2 copies of Inkmoth Nexus, though. Don't want to forget about that. Ben will go back to Ben Friedman's turn, though. He'll cast Ancient Stirrings. He's got some good options. Eldrazi Temple and Engineered Explosives.
Mighty good spot for an Explosives if he has another untapped land.
Well, he's just got to stay alive here as he takes Eldrazi Temple, because I believe he has Drowner of Hope in his hand, and now on the battlefield, he's got the Drowner Displacer interaction set up with 6 mana again.
Mighty good spot for the biggest creature in the matchup.
Signal Pest the draw from Jake. That is not going to help.
Jake can try to set something up like a big Inkmoth Nexus swing with the Cranial Plating, but the Scion tokens and the Drowner of Hope will enable Friedman to just tap that down.
Signal Pest from Mondello. Yeah, there's really no way out to this for him without killing that Drowner, right? But I don't know. That this 2-piece lock of Displacer plus Drowner is pretty good against Affinity.
Yeah.
And I can't go without saying, Ben, in this game and game 2, double Eldrazi Temple both games. That's why the deck got banned.
Yes. This is actually the kind of game that you might play in the format before the bans.
Yeah, during Eldrazi Winter, it's like, why do all your lands make so much mana? You're playing Drowners on turn 3 every game. Stop it. So Jake's going to attempt to attack, but before attacks, Ben will use a Scion to tap the Nexus with Cranial Plating. He still has one more Scion left. He may let this attack go through. Unless he's got a count, does he die if he lets it go through? Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, you just got to do a quick Arcbound Ravager count. Looks like
see.
there's 4, 5,
7
6.
artifacts.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be enough to kill him outright. He'll be untapping with Displacer mana.
No double black to throw the Cranial Plating onto the Nexus.
Yep. The Scion token is somewhat expendable, considering he's going to be able to untap and make 4 every turn.
Ben decides it's okay to take 1 point of poison. Now we go back to his turn, where he sits in his hand with another Drowner and a Sky Spawner and an Ancient Stirrings. I think he's got the tools to take down this game.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult from here. It's not even clear that casting spells is better than what he has on the table.
Yeah, a Sky Spawner might not be so bad.
Yeah,
I
Sky
could get behind
Spawner
that.
plus activation. Yeah, get a flying blocker on the table in case something weird happens.
Yeah, let's trade away some things. But you're right. I mean, just double active. So if Ben wanted to play the board and not use his cards in his hand, it would be he would activate the Displacer on his Drowner once, maybe tap something, leave up 3 mana in case something goes wrong, and then on end step do it again, and just maybe do that until he has an army of 11 Scions, call it a day.
Yeah, the Inkmoth Nexus and the Signal Pest are only flying creatures. Once that's true, when you have Scions and Drowner and Eldrazi Displacer, you can just block with the Scions. You don't even have to tap anything.
So this is nice. Ben's going to cast a second Drowner in his hand. And you see he's actually leaving, he's not going to cast his Stirrings, and this is pretty smart. I think what he's wanting to do is leave up a Scion to tap with, and then 3 mana for a Displacer, just in case.
Yep. Also, there's nothing that he would want to find with Stirrings. Maybe something happens where
another temple.
Maybe something happens where he wants to actually actively find another engineered explosives.
Sure. Yeah, his cards in hand and on board are great. He hits Jake down to 12 that turn. We go back to Mondello. Things are looking grim for him now. It's a tough spot for him to be in because this is one of the matchups he wants. I talked in the pregame show about Affinity, and I kind of talked pretty negatively about it, saying I'm not sure where your good matchups are anymore. This is it, and I don't think it has that many good ones left. And for Jake, it's rough that he finds one of the good matchups, and it looks like he's going to lose it.
And Ben's been able to produce tools that are just brutal. Not only does he have Eldrazi Temple to kind of cheat on mana to keep pace with the fast mana of something like Mox Opal, which Mondello didn't really even have, but then Friedman also just been able to leverage engineered explosives very effectively. So while maybe in terms of actual proactive strategy, Mondello's looking for a matchup like this, he's not really happy to play against engineered explosives.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to play against. When the banned Eldrazi deck has enough temples, no one really wants to play against it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. That's why it's still able to be a deck in Modern, despite playing pretty honest Magic. Because the way it cheats on mana, when it works, it's very effective.
See, another Ravager for Jake. That was his draw. He's facing down a board of 3 Scions with 2 Drowners. He's not going to get any better.
And Friedman knows he doesn't have to worry about his Displacer dying, anything like that. Just has to play this turn in a way where he gets to untap.
Well, what's great here is Ben has left up the 1 mana to tap an attacker and then 3 for the Displacer. And the Displacer is particularly important because what Jake could try to do is swing everything, Ben blocks, and Jake finds the 1 unblocked creature, sacrifices all his artifacts, puts a bunch of counters on it, and if he does, Ben will displace it.
Yep. He also has the ability to just tap down anything with flying, Inkmoth Nexus, Signal Pest with Scions, and just block with that 3rd Scion, the Drowner, the Displacer.
Yeah. Jake will activate Inkmoth Nexus. He goes to attacks. Will Ben tap? Probably not, actually.
Yeah, having the displacer activation, that changes the equation somewhat.
He's going to sacrifice a Scion to tap Signal Pest, then tap Inkmoth Nexus. Jake may use this to activate another Inkmoth. And if he does, Ben will have to tap it. And that's what he'll do. Activate a second Inkmoth. Ben will tap that one as well. Is there a reason this is better than just leaving up the Displacer? I suppose it doesn't matter. Ben's in a pretty great spot both ways.
Yeah, you know, technically he's not making use of the Talisman, but he got to tap everything he wanted to tap. And from here, if Jake makes any attacks, Friedman actually has 13 power on the table against Jake, who's on 12. And he'll be able to activate Displacer twice and just kill Jake.
When Eldrazi Displacer's ability only requires tapping 2 lands instead of 3, it's really a good card. Yeah, if he had another temple here, he would win on the spot.
Yep.
Does not appear that he does. So Ben looking to win on the following turn.
He gets a free attack with a Drowner, and then he gets to displace that a couple times. The Displacer does tap things when they re-enter the battlefield.
Yeah, Displacer exiles target creature, then it enters, return it to the battlefield tapped. Quite the card, really.
It's not a bad one.
Windswept Heath to draw from Ben Friedman. So he has Sky Spawner, Stirrings, and Heath. He's going to go ahead and sacrifice the Windswept Heath. To get a basic forest. Looks like he's going to go for Ancient Stirrings. Is there something he's looking for? I suppose maybe an Engineered Explosives. A Spellskite.
Actually, Reality Smasher? No, I don't think that changes any of the combat on this turn if you find Smasher.
Explosives. You see he had an option of Sky Spawner and Drowner and went immediately for Engineered Explosives. I think that was what he wanted. I'm not sure he's going to... Yeah, we'll just see what Ben's up to.
Explosives on 2 makes it so he can play this game just a lot more recklessly because the Cranial Plating's off the table, the Arcbound Ravagers are off the table.
So I'll just play it and crack it immediately, but he might die if he does that.
Yeah, I guess he has to tap off of his Displacer activations. That's a problem.
He's going to start by displacing... Well, we'll see. Trying to find the way to victory here is Ben Friedman. Last 2 cards are Eldrazi Sky Spawner and Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, there's no way for him to win on this turn.
Yeah, so, I mean, he may just not be able to play either of these cards.
Yeah, his best line seems to just be the double displace on the Drowner.
Yeah, maybe one on the Drowner and just leaving up the second one.
Yep, that's also
That
fine.
way Jake can't all in on a Ravager. Or on another creature using Ravager. He's going to cast Engineered Explosives on 2. He's got different plans. This is interesting. I don't know where Ben goes with this. No lands untap, so Ben cracks the explosives. Now, Jake, there's no way that Jake can sneak these counters onto Inkmoth Nexus.
Right,
And that's very important.
Yeah, the only flying creature that he could suit up would be the Signal Pest. 12 damage is a...
Could be enough.
It's a bit more than taking 9 poison.
Okay, so here's a neat play. He's going to displace one of his Drowners. He uses, this is great. It makes 2 Scions. One of the Scions is used to sacrifice the explosives to get everything on 2. Ben then has another Scion up left over to tap whatever it is that Jake ends up putting these counters on. If, however, Ryan, if Jake draws another Ravager, though, he wins here, I think. Right? If he ends up with all the counters.
He does have 2 Ink Moth next eye.
So you play the Ravager, activate both Ink Moths, whichever one Ben doesn't tap, put everything on it, win game.
Yeah, looks like he'll be able to get exactly 8 modular. You know, the Ravager here is... Well, no, this Ravager has to modular somewhere. It's getting killed by the explosives as well, right?
So he'd have to, like...
You're
right. Yeah, there's no way to do it.
Yeah. It's still on the table, but it is dying. Those counters are going away.
Yeah, and they don't move. Okay, it's going to be harder.
Yeah, the modular does not carry forward. So this 4/4 Mem Knight is pretty irrelevant against the 5/5 blocker.
That's where those counters end there. Pass. Back to Mondello. I mean, Ravager still might be a good enough draw. We'll see. Can he do anything? There were no attacks that turn from Ben Friedman. And Jake does not hit, and he'll extend the hand. It is Ben Friedman piloting Bant Eldrazi to 7-0. Now one of the 3 undefeated players left in the field.
Great start for a gentleman with a number of invitational top 8s already.
Yeah, 4 looking for his 5th. Still looking for that first win, but he's joining in very elite company if he can get a 5th top 8.
Maybe make an Eldrazi Scion token.
That would be good, yeah. Well, congratulations to Ben. One more round, though, of Modern to go.